Hello to all of you. So I'm down in Cape Town at the moment, and I'm at my mother's house, and her internet connection, believe it or not, is less than 1 meg. So I've had to connect them using my 3G stick, and and in simple terms, it wasn't fast enough. So I've actually phoned in. I just wanted to double check. Lee, you're in England at the moment, are you not?
I am. I'm on the southwestern coast, southeastern coast. I don't know. On the coast in Bournemouth, wherever that is in England at the moment. So I am freezing, not the weather I'm used to from the desert. Even cold in the desert isn't cold like this. But it is great to be experiencing some of the British hospitality, and boy, do they know how to make pies.
So I've got my webcam on, and as Lee says, it's a little bit weird because you're hearing my voice and then seeing my mouth. So what I think I'll be doing, I don't know, Lee, if you think I should leave my webcam on or whether I should switch it off.
I think when you're doing the presentation, there's no harm in you switching it off. We can still hear you. And then for Q&As at the end, we can turn our webcams back on. It might just make the feed run a little smoother for you.
Perfect. So what I'd like to do is invite you on a journey. Obviously, we did this webinar about 2 weeks ago, Lee and I, and we had quite a lot of feedback from people that weren't able to make it, and they really asked us to redo it. As I said, I'm down in Cape Town at the moment, so we tried to find a night. We understand that at this time of the year, it's Christmas parties, and people are much more interested on going on leave and worrying about their festive season, etc. But we did think, based on quite a lot of demand, that we would put on the webinar. So we want to welcome you all that are here tonight. And I hope it works from an internet perspective. We will be recording it so that we can share it with people if there's anything that they don't see. Now, the one thing that I want to invite you on this journey about is that I've basically spent the best part of the last 20 years trying to marry together the property and the technology industry. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it's a space that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about, and there's a huge amount of information. And so some people say that when they listen to this webinar, it's like drinking from a fire hose. And for that reason, I need to go quite fast. There's a lot of information I've got to share. We do have lots of social groups, and we do have a Q&A at the end where I'll stay and, Lee will stay and answer any questions that anyone has with anything that we can help with. So if there are questions, just fire them through. I'll Lee, just shout if there's anything that's pertinent, during the event, during the webinar, and or if there's anything that we can run it at the end. I do always like to just see if people actually know where the button is. So there's a little dashboard up in the top right corner, and you can literally go and click on the button. So it's always interesting to see where people are coming from. There's a lot of people online tonight or today, depending on where you are in the world. And I'm really interested. You've got Lee in England in minus temperature degrees, and me in Cape Town in boiling hot weather. So we've got the two paradigms, and I hope I don't get load shed. Otherwise, forget about the Wi-Fi. You'll have nothing but a telephone call. So anyway, without further ado, I think let's rock and roll. Let's see where some people just type in the chat box where you're actually from. What I'd also like to see is what people are wanting to get out of tonight's webinar, because like I just said to you, there's so much information. I could probably speak for an entire week. I mean, Lee could probably put on a 5-day course, and we could go into each one of these areas in a lot more detail. So, to try to cover it in under 90 minutes is actually quite tough. So the more you give me direction on what you're looking for, the better in terms of what we're looking at. Okay, let's rock and roll. So what I would like to discuss is the coming disruption to the $217 trillion real estate industry and how you can benefit. And there's a whole bunch of things that I think are important. And one of the most important things for me is that Simon Sinek, and sorry, Lee, I'm not going to be able to watch the question box and or my webinar, my webcam. So if there's anything where the audio is not working or anything, if you could just shout and let me know, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So just in terms of the introduction, Simon Sinek talks a lot. In fact, it's the second most watched TED Talk on the Golden Circle. And what's really, really important is you've got to get clear on the why, because most people are figuring out, trying to worry about the how and the what. But if they get very clear on the why, then they can get clarity around their big picture purpose. So our why is, this is my father and me. It was my first real estate project when I was 13 years old. My dad did what you were all taught to do. He went to school, he went to university, he got a good degree, got a good job, he invested, he trusted the financial industry. And yet, when he died on the 1st of August 2005, he actually died broke. And statistically, 94% of people watching this webinar will join my father by the age of 65. They'll either be broke, dead, or reliant on the government. Another 5% will be what's called financially independent. And most people actually want to be financially independent until they find out that financially independent is they earn 25% less than their last paycheck, which quite frankly is just 25% poorer. And that basically leaves everyone trying to succeed, and only 1% of people are succeeding. And so at a very young age, I decided there had to be a different way. And I really, fell in love with the game of property and real estate. I also loved computers, and this is a Commodore 64. I learned to program on a turtle called Logo when I was 6 years old. And I basically spent my entire life, which is now 42 years, trying to figure out how to marry together the property and the technology industry. Most of us as children love to play the game of Monopoly. And a question we always ask ourselves is, why could we not make Monopoly a real life game where people can invest around the world and ultimately play global Monopoly in real life? And then the greatest challenge we've got on this planet is the wealth gap. Growing up in Africa, it's very stark, but it's not just an African problem. It's all over the world. It's the number one problem that the UN has looked at in terms of their sustainability goals, and really something needs to be done about it. And this is our why of what we do and why we do it. There's a video that I want to share with you, and I'm going to try and see if the internet will be good enough to do this. So let's just see quickly if I share this video with you. And while this video is loading, this video pretty much summarizes the problem that I just said, the solution, and how we plan on solving it. I'm hoping the internet's going to work. So I'm interested, Lee, if you could just let me know, did that actually work?
That worked perfectly.
Okay. It's really difficult when you're not sure whether the internet is working well enough. Well, anyway, that gives you guys and everyone that's online an introduction into why we do what we do, who we are, and ultimately what we're doing. What I really want to share with you is I want to ask you a question to start off with. So I've asked this a few times, and the question is, who is Ronald Wayne? Now, does anyone know? You can just type it in the chat box who Ronald Wayne actually is. So no one's coming through on the chat box. We need to aim to get a bit more engagement, but basically Ronald Wayne was the third shareholder in Apple, and he sold his shares for $2,300 that today is worth over $70 billion. And I often joke with people, in life, it's, sometimes you hear things and you wish you had information, you wish you knew, back then, as an example, you probably wish you bought into Apple stock, or you wish you bought into Google stock, or you wish you bought into Facebook, and I'm sure Ronald Wayne wishes that he didn't sell his 10% stake in Apple for $2,300. And I always tend to, start with this as a bit of a joke, because in life, you never know when you're hearing really important information that could have a material impact in terms of the future. And that's certainly our aim tonight, is to share with you where the world is going. And as we're about to step into a new decade, a lot of people are nervous about the new decade, but it actually presents tremendous opportunity as well. So I like to always talk about, how the world is changing, and most people understand this. When you take this airline, Delta Airlines, it's the oldest airline in the world, oldest operational airline in the world. It's been flying since 1924. It's got 80,000 staff. It's in about 60 countries, and it's worth about $38 billion. But $20 billion of that is planes. It's literally the value of the planes. And you compare it with Uber, that has about 12,000 staff. It's in about 80 countries and more than double the amount of cities, and it's worth arguably $50-60 billion, and it's only been running 10 years. You compare it to Marriott Hotels. Marriott Hotels is the oldest hotel group in the world. It also has about 80,000 staff. It has 627,000 bed nights. Every single night, there's 627,000 beds. And you compare it, and it's worth about $19 billion. And you compare it with Airbnb, that literally has 4,000 staff, and it's in something ridiculous like 5 or 6 million bed nights. So I mean, it's nearly 7 or 8 times the size of Marriott. It's worth $30 billion, and obviously it's got far less people involved, a lot more scalable. And so the world is truly changing all around us. And I love this little diagram that you get from the Wall Street Journal. And if I go to it here quickly, it will basically show you the amount of billion-dollar companies which have been created in the last 5 years as technology completely disrupts different industries. And you can basically see, you should be seeing this live, and seeing how this goes up and it goes down, but how these different companies are disrupting different industries around the world. Really fascinating to see what has happened. And you're looking at over 150 companies that have created, billion-dollar companies that have been created over the last 5 years, where technology has completely disrupted different industries, which is absolutely fascinating to me. And when you look at it, when you look at all the brands that we all understand, Amazon, Uber, Alibaba, Google, Airbnb, Facebook, etc., there's only 3 things they all do. The first is they cut out the middleman. The second, they cut the costs. And the third is that they increase the trust, the transparency, and the accessibility. That is it. That is the things that they do. But when you look at it, the world is completely transforming, because Uber is the largest taxi company, but it has no vehicles. Facebook is the most popular media owner, but it has no content. Alibaba is the most valuable retailer, but it has no inventory. Airbnb is the largest accommodation provider, but it owns no real estate. And I always say to people, what is it that is, that aligns all these companies? What is it that makes these companies the same? And, if we were in a live room now, I'd ask you for your opinions. And, a lot of people say things like they don't own any assets, they're technology companies, etc. But the one that I believe is most important is that it's about data. They are data companies. What's also very important is that I was at an event a couple of months ago, and through Singularity University, And what they said is that if you ever want to find an industry that is going to get disrupted by technology, there's only two things you need to look out for. The first is where there's a horrible customer experience, and secondly, where it's expensive and difficult to use. So if you take like the taxi industry, before Uber came along, anywhere in the world, catching a taxi was a horrible experience and it was expensive. And that is why Uber was able to come in and create such disruption. And what I always say when it comes to real estate or the property market worldwide is it an easy experience to buy a house, sell a house, invest in property locally, commercially or internationally? So whether you're a homeowner or an investor or even a renter, is it an easy experience? And secondly, is it quick, efficient, and cheap? And I think we're honest with ourselves. We would say it's a very old, very archaic industry that is not a great experience and certainly is very expensive. And that's why it's ripe for disruption. And so what I'm going to share with you later is that we did a raise through Seeders. Now, Seeders is the largest equity crowdfunding platform in Europe. And we did a raise about a year ago. In fact, we launched on the 30th of November and we closed it on the 2nd of February. We raised $2.5 million from 863 investors in 43 countries. And we were quite well overfunded in terms of, where we did it. It was an extremely difficult process to go through. It's like doing a mini IPO. They're fully regulated. They had to check all our financials, all our information. They had to go through our valuations. We had to get independent valuations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a very, very thorough process. And what has presented itself as a very unique opportunity for our investors, which I'll talk about later, is where we had a $400,000 commitment from investors that were actually in a deal in Australia. And this deal was due to exit in early this year, sort of March, April. And so we agreed with Seeders that they would, be allowed to enter once the building exited. Unfortunately, like happens in property, that deal has still not exited. And so Seeders have come back to us and said, look, we can't continue just to leave this open. But they've allowed us to go back to our community and allow people to participate at the exact same rate as Seeders, on the same valuation, the same terms and everything else, to make up that $400,000 as long as it happened before the end of this year. And we did a webinar last week, and the last calculation Lee sent through to me, we've already had over $200,000 into the bank. So there's not a huge amount of opportunity left, but we did want to allow people to participate. It just seems like a wasted opportunity to not allow people to participate through no fault of the investors. There's nothing they could do about the development not exiting. But unfortunately, their frustration is equally an opportunity for someone else. I'll talk more about that later. And why this becomes important is that if you look at how people invest in companies, most of us only tend to invest in the Facebooks or the Amazons once they actually IPO. And it's amazing. I mean, if you invested $10,000 in Amazon pre-IPO, today it'd be worth $12 million. Most of us wish that we had invested in an Uber or an Airbnb that is very much in the scale phase. But what equity crowdfunding allows people to do is allows them to participate not in startup companies, but in companies that already have traction, a track record, and growth. And really, it allows people to invest higher up the value chain, which is what we'll be sharing later. But before we do, I want to share with you some major trends which are happening around the world. Now, the first thing I would recommend is that you read this book. It's called New Power. Richard Branson rated it as the #1 book for 2018. Now, I don't have time tonight to go into all the detail, but you can see you've got old power values, old power model, you've got new power model, and new power values. And this book is an amazing book. And there's also a Harvard review about it. And what's really important is that I took the book and I broke it down into a simple model. So you can see the old power values, the old power model, the new power model, and new power values. And you can see on the left, you've got return. At the top, you've got global and purposeful. On the right, you've got exponential. And at the bottom, you've got short-term risk. And as an example, if you take literally Encyclopedia Britannica, in the bottom left-hand corner, and then you've got Wikipedia in the top right-hand corner, which is the 8th most visited website in the world. You've got Marriott hotels that we've already spoken about in the bottom left-hand corner, and you've got Airbnb in the top right-hand corner. You've got Barnes & Noble, a traditional bookstore, in the bottom left-hand corner, and you've got Amazon in the top right-hand corner. And then you've got a traditional property company in the bottom left-hand corner, and you've got platforms like Migrate in the top right-hand corner. What I also think is important is that over the next 10 years, as these global trends change, the long-term risk actually goes from right to left, because there's more risk in having an old school business model when times are changing, when models are changing, and most importantly, when there are massive trends happening both in technology, in society, and political, economically, which I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. And what's important, they always say, don't skate to where the puck is. So in ice hockey, there was that famous ice hockey player, I forget his name right now, but he used to say, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. And tonight is something that I want to share with you, and that Lee wants to share with you, around where the future trends are going, so that you too can get excited about the next decade, and you too can participate and take advantage of it. So let's look at just some simple ones. The first one is social proofing. So back in 2003, I bought £11,000 worth of rugby tickets to go watch the Rugby World Cup, and I got scammed on eBay. And I very quickly learned about social proofing. So if you look at social proofing, if you go and buy a ticket on eBay, 7104 Leslie has actually sold 974 items on eBay with 100% positive feedback. You've got more chance of getting your tickets from 7104 Leslie than you probably have of getting it from your brother or sister, because they are not going to ruin their online reputation. And that is what social proofing is all about. When you go to eBay or Alibaba or Amazon or any of them, it's all about the ratings that you've got, and the descriptions and everything, and you can see the top rated sellers and how they are, and what is their consistency of feedback, etc. And then you've got reputation management systems. If you look at Alibaba, how long have they been in business? How many transactions have they done? What value have they done? Have they been, visited? Have they had supplier assessments, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you think about it, all of us book our holidays, we book our airline tickets, we book our restaurants on our friends' guidance. And more social proofing is allowing us to make decisions that aren't coming from our friends, but from the public, from society, basically. And so the question I always have is, why would it not be possible to do that in investing? Why could you not have silver, gold, and platinum partners? You could have the amount of years they're in business, the projects they've done to date, the niche focus they're in, the amount of money they're investing in the project, the risk that they are assuming in the project, the responsiveness that they've got to communication. I mean, one thing with property people the world over is they're bloody horrendous communicators. But what about responsiveness to investors' communication? Timing of dividends. What about accuracy of returns promised versus accuracy received? Would you rather invest in a deal with a provider that says they're going to give you a 6% return, but they have 120% accuracy of outperforming their predictions, so you know that you're going to get at least 6% and probably higher? Or would you rather invest in an 8% property, but with a company that only has a 50% track record of actuals to track record to actuals? And you see how it'll make it so much easier for investors to be decisive around what it is for them from an investment perspective and from a risk. Then you've got badge categories, and it's so interesting with gamification and how people love to play. And if you take due diligence as an example, when Wikipedia came out, all the universities around the world said that it's an absolute shambles and it was an indictment on the system, and how could the information ever be correct? And what's so interesting is that Wikipedia is 100 times more accurate than the Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't know anyone that goes and buys an Encyclopedia Britannica anymore. But how they do that is they've got 19 million people. Like you and I cannot just go on Wikipedia and sign up. We actually, we can't just go and write stuff up. You have to be an accredited person. There's 19 million people around the world that are contributing to Wikipedia for free, but they are the ones that ultimately build that. And I believe that when it comes to property, you're always going to have local due diligence. In New Zealand, as an example, there'll be different due diligence to Cape Town, to Atlanta, to Tokyo. And you could actually have local teams of people that are accredited to do local due diligence, which will allow you, property is always going to be local, but it will allow you to have a trusted global real estate marketplace. Then you've got participants and investor networks and people working together and buying together and working in badges and communicating. So it's not only about investing and the future, but it's also about participating and sharing. And it's exactly where millennials are going and how people like to do things nowadays. And these are all the dashboards that we've mocked up and that are in the plan of actually being built out by the tech team. And so what's really interesting when you look at that old power, new power, old power when it came to real estate investments, any sort of investment companies, there's only two things they really try and do. They try and comply and they try and get you to consume. Those are the only two things they're interested in, really. But when it comes to new power, it's about sharing. It's about affiliating. It's about adapting and actually building. It's about funding and actually being an investor and growing the company, but benefiting along the way. It's about producing and actually being a property partner, as an example. And ultimately, it's about shaping, which is like Wikipedia, where you've got the people. There's not one team running Wikipedia. It's a global movement of people that are shaping the information. And again, I've got LinkedIn articles on this. And if you go to our eWealth pack, you can actually go and read all about this because it's really, really fascinating. Or you could also read the CEO letter from 2018. So our CEO letter from 2018. If you're interested in it, let us know. I'm due to write the one for 2019 now. But if you want to read the one from 2018, I went into this in a huge amount of detail to give people a view into the future of where property was going. So I want to share with you two people that have had a material impact on my life. The first is Peter Diamandis. Now, he is the founder of the X Prize. He's the founder of Singularity University. He's one of the most respected people in the tech space. Now, Singularity University is actually built on the NASA campus, and it is the #1 university for exponential technologies around the world. And he says the world's greatest problems are also the world's biggest opportunities. And that's what Singularity University is all about. It's how can you impact 1 billion people in the next decade and solve grand challenges. And that's why we got so excited, because we were already asking ourselves the question, long before we heard about Peter Diamandis or Singularity University, there are currently 1 billion people on this planet that have access to property or real estate. And we've been asking ourselves the question, how could we double that? How could we make it another 1 billion? And so it just felt like complete resonance, really, in terms of what we were doing. When one looks at exponentials, I had the privilege of going to study at Singularity University and to do their executive program a couple of years ago. And you can look here that it's all about your impact. You've got Moore's Law, which is all around technology. It's all around digitizing. It's about the J curve and disruption. It's about how do leaders imagine and create an abundant future. It's really, really, really important. There was a lovely one on the right-hand side here about the 6 Ds, which I'm going to talk about now in terms of all around exponentials. But the most important thing is this one, how to ask better questions. Where is the world going and how can we solve grand challenges? And what Peter Diamandis talks about is the 6 Ds of when technology disrupts an industry. The first stage is that it's digitized. The second is it's deceptive. The third is disruptive. And ultimately, it gets dematerialized, demonetized, and democratized. Now, if you take your cell phone, none of us 10 years ago had a smartphone. And yet now we've all got smartphones. We've got voice recorders. We've got maps. We've got video cameras. We've got cameras. I mean, there's like 26 different gadgets in here that 10 years ago we would have had to go out and buy. And that's what they mean by demonetized, dematerialized, and democratized. If you take taxis, obviously with Uber, they got digitized. Then they went through the deceptive phase when all the taxi drivers tried to block the Uber drivers. And then it got all over the press, and then it became truly disruptive. And, different industries are in different stages. I find it fascinating because the real estate industry is still only in the digitization phase. It's so old and archaic that people can't even see what is coming and how it's going to change. But it will fast move into the deceptive phase and then ultimately the disruptive phase. The second person from Singularity University is a guy called Ray Kurzweil. There's a couple of quotes that are here by Ray Kurzweil. Now, Ray Kurzweil is the father of artificial intelligence. He's one of the most respected futurists in terms of predicting where technology is going to be. He's got a phenomenal track record. He has an 86% accuracy over the last 30 years of tracking a technology to the year that it would go live. Now that's phenomenal when you consider what's happened in the last 30 years. And when I learned from him personally at Singularity University, one of my biggest takeaways from him was that the way that he does that is he looks for long-term trends that are intersecting. And that's where the point is. So a great example he used was Siri. All of us on our mobile phones have Siri. And the guys that built Siri, they said, right, there's three major trends. There's mobile smartphone adoption, there's AI, artificial intelligence, and there's voice recognition. Let's build a product to take advantage of all three of those products. And within 18 months, they were bought by Apple for a couple of $100 million. And that's a classic example of looking at future trends and planning for future trends. And so let's look at some trends and the impact that it has when you get those trends right. You know, when you take the internet and the growth of the internet, it literally started from 1995. It was called the Netscape moment. And that is when people, you know, first had access, when you and I had access to the internet and could use it. There was a company called Amazon that started in 1995. Today, Jeff Bezos is one of the richest people in the world. It's one of the most valuable companies in the world. And $10,000 invested pre-IPO is worth $12 million today. And that's a good example of a long-term trend, and not just trying to jump on the bandwagon, but actually spotting a long-term trend and then riding that long-term trend. So the purpose of tonight is I want to give you some insight into 8 technology trends and 8 social trends that are all intersecting over the next decade. And in my opinion, and in our opinion as a team, present a generational opportunity where we can either ignore them, we can watch what's going to happen, or we can take advantage of what is going to happen. And I'm going to run through each of these quite quickly tonight. But the first one is blockchain and how that's going to solve trust. The second one is artificial intelligence, connecting us to the world's intelligence. Then we got big data, algorithms, and quantum computing, which are going to help people make smart investments. We've got VR, virtual reality, and AR, which is augmented reality, which is where people can experience the reality digitally. We got O2O, which is connecting with the best in the world. I'll explain that more. We got mobile phone adoption. We got 3D printing, and we got the digital layer, IoT, and bringing it all together. So let's look at these different trends. Now, one of the biggest challenges that we've got in the investment space, Lee, I just want to be clear. Are you still hearing me clearly and it's all going according to plans? I'm talking.
Absolutely. No, we can hear you and we can see you and it's all good. Scott, can you hear me?
Lee, that's the most bizarre thing. I literally asked you whether you guys could hear me, and the next thing, the phone got cut off. I just wanted to check if everything was going according to plan so far, other than me being cut off right now.
It was until you asked and got cut off. Before then, it was going perfectly, and you're back with us now. So don't ask again.
Okay. Well, if you do lose me, yeah, exactly. If you do lose me for some reason, the phone just switched off, so I'll just have to dial back in. Anyway, let's go back to blockchain. And for me, our greatest challenge to invest is trust. And when I understood, what was happening in blockchain back in 2014, I got very, very excited because you effectively got e-commerce and you've got social media, and they're coming together and they form social commerce. And social commerce is built on a foundation of blockchain, which is basically distributed trust. Now, we were the first platform in the world, real estate platform, to go live in October 2016 with a blockchain solution for our investment transactions. And for those of you who don't know what blockchain is, I want to share this little video with you because I believe this is the best video I've found. It's only 2 minutes long to explain blockchain. If you've seen this before, I apologize. But blockchain is going to have a bigger impact on your life in the next 20 years than the internet has in the past 20 years. And that's a very big statement. And it's why it's so important that you understand what blockchain is.
This is the seller. This is the buyer. This is the middleman. Cutting out the middleman can be a great thing, unless you're the middleman. And there are a lot of middlemen or intermediaries out there. Entire industries, such as payments or securities clearing, have evolved to rely on them. Why? Because they establish trust where there is none. They establish ownership, that the seller has the right to sell what's being sold. They attest to history, that there is a clean transaction history. And they certify ability, that the buyer has the money to buy it. All pretty critical details when you don't know the person on the other side of the transaction. Intermediaries know and trust one another. Their business is based on it, so they have more to lose than gain from breaching that trust. But what if there were a better, cheaper middleman, one that didn't add as much cost, complexity, and chance for error? There might be. It's called blockchain, and it has the potential to disrupt the entire ecology of intermediaries. It's a distributed ledger that relies on large networks of computers that redundantly encode transaction data by solving complex mathematical equations. The secure ledger provides an inviolable record. If the history of an instrument is incorruptible and available to all parties, there's no need for a third party to vouch. Blockchain is proof of ownership, history, and ability in non-centralized encrypted form. It's fast, transparent, and free of error. The question is not whether blockchains can cut out the middlemen in complex transactions, but rather which middlemen and when.
Well, I love that little video because I think it's very, very good at explaining just in simple terms what blockchain is. Now, there are some questions that have come through here, and I noticed that there were some questions around the business and the financials, everything. I will answer those later for you. We're actually just finishing our year-end financials now, so ironically, I've got all the numbers at my fingertips, which is great. So we've been through blockchain, and there's 9 industries that are expected to be disrupted massively by blockchain. And according to Inc. magazine, the top 2 are banking and the real estate industry, which is really interesting because they're 2 of the most old, opaque industries, one of the most inefficient, where people aren't happy and they're ripe for disruption. The second one is AI. Now, I've spoken to you about Ray Kurzweil. There's a lot of talk. We did a fascinating wealth weekend with Hilda Lunderstedt, where we spoke a lot about artificial intelligence. But in simple terms, by 2029 is when computers are going to be able to be smarter than human beings. And by 2045, they're going to have the entire, something like a billion-fold. And ultimately, we're going to be able to connect in. Now, some people get super scared about this. Most of us are already using artificial intelligence every single day, whether it's the maps that we're using, the voice messaging, or anything like that. But it's really interesting how we can speed up and how this is going to change dramatically with the third one, which is all around big data and quantum computing. Now, a good example of this is, most people in life want to have a personalized journey. So as an example, you can go along, you can do our investor test, It's got 5 different paradigms. It gives you a 26-page report. That then puts it together into our GID system, which is our global investment due diligence system. And through big data, through artificial intelligence, through robo-advising, and through quantum computing, over time, this is not all here now, but this is where the world is going, this is where we're going, will ultimately allow people to do smart investing. And what that basically means is that it'll help people make the right decisions for themselves. So they could say, listen, if I put $10,000 into this, I want to be retired by 60. If I put into this, how long will it take? And it takes all the data backwards and it extrapolates it forwards. And with a very high level of accuracy can give people a predictive analysis. It's called future-proofing of where they're actually going to go. Now imagine how much you would like to be able to be in control of your own financial destiny, where literally each decision that you make could be future-proofed, which would allow you to make smart investments with the right data. The fourth one is VR, which is virtual reality, and AR, which is augmented reality. Virtual reality is where you go into a completely different world. Most people that buy our properties love to get on an airplane, fly over and see them. Imagine if you can literally just put your goggles on and go to the property. You've also got augmented reality, which is where it goes through your cell phone or even through Google Glass. And that's where you're looking at the real world and you've got a digital layer with all the information. And, this will change people's perspective and reality of what is possible. They won't need to travel anymore, and you'll be able to invest all over the world, but have a local experience. O2O is one of the most fascinating ones. So what people don't realize is that there's a massive movement from online to offline. And the biggest venture capital company in the world is called SoftBank. And their vision fund is worth, it's 10 times bigger than the next biggest venture capital fund. And what's interesting is that all the companies that they've invested in are O2O, so online to offline. So things like Uber that have digitized the experience, but it's still a real world experience. You've got Alibaba there, you've got WeWork, you've got Flipkart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really, really important that most people nowadays expect a digital experience, but they also want to have a human experience. And like I say to people, we want to be a technology company, but with a human heart. Hello, little monkey. And when you look at the web, oh, is that your rugby dad? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's very, very beautiful. I'll look forward to you telling me all about it. Okay. So what's happened is that the web has developed in 3 different stages. From 1995 to 2005, we had Web 1.0, which was all around e-commerce. Then we had from 2005 to 2015, we had social media, and now we're actually going into Web 3.0, which is all around social commerce. And this is where this O2O is becoming so important. And what's interesting is that the Vision Fund is focusing on some of the most oldest and archaic markets that are out there. Now, I said 217 trillion with the real estate market. They think it's worth 228 trillion. Now, quite frankly, it doesn't really matter. I think it's, enough blue ocean to create a lot of value for people. But it's, one of the markets that they are focusing on wholeheartedly is the real estate market, because with the O2O strategy, it can be fundamentally changed so much. The next trend is about cell phones. And what's interesting is that when you look at it, there's about 4 billion people on the planet that actually have internet connectivity at the moment. But with the adoption of cell phones and smartphones, within the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be 8 billion people on this planet, and every single one of them is going to have global connectivity. And what's really, really interesting is that means that somewhere between 3 to 4 billion new people are going to be joining the global population. Okay, they're going to be joining the global economy. And you just think of the impact that is going to have on global commerce. And what do they want? They want access to health. They want access to education, and they want access to wealth. They want all the things that people want as they rise into the middle class. Then you've got 3D printing, and I've got another video for you here, because 3D printing will have a material impact on the cost. So when it comes to property or real estate, the cost is a huge part of that. I've got a degree in construction management. I've spent time building and developing my own developments, and a huge amount of that is material and people cost. And imagine if it could change with 3D printing. And here's another little video of 3D printing and the impact that 3D printing can have on the property real estate industry. I hope you're enjoying all these little videos, but it just brings to life what we're talking about. I don't know if you noticed in that video, that house cost $10,000 and was built in 24 hours. And you start to think about dematerialization and democratization and demonetization, it truly becomes realistic when one thinks about 3D printing. And then finally, you've got the digital layer. And what's really interesting is that there's more digital devices connected to the internet now than there are human beings. There's about 12 billion devices connected now. But over the next 10 years, they're expecting that to extrapolate to well over 50 billion devices, where your fridge is going to be connected into the internet, your microwave will be connected into the internet. Everything will be smart. And that's why we say to people, with all the sensors and everything else, because it brings it all together, why should we not have smart investing? We've got smart TVs, we've got smart cars, we've got smartphones. Why should we not have smart investing? Now let's look at 8 social trends. And the first trend is social commerce and collaborative investing. So I've spoken a little bit about social commerce, but this is going to help increase returns and reduce risk for investors. The second one is about the rise of the middle class in the emerging markets and the fact that, as I've already mentioned, there's between 3 and 4 billion people that are unbanked at the moment that are joining the global economy. The third is globalization and local volatility, creating conditions where investors desire diversification. You know, it's becoming more and more popular now, not just for the wealthiest people, but diversify across markets, across countries, across assets. The fourth is blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and this is dramatically increasing trust and massively reducing friction costs. The fifth is social pressure to democratize the access to wealth and empower the 99%. Number 6 is gamification and learning while doing, which is going to fundamentally change our education system. Number 7 is personalization. And, you know, nobody wants to be put in a box anymore. Every single person wants their own personal solution. They want the power to create freedom in their lives so that they can have, you know, a meaningful connection with their life, with their destiny, with their legacy, and ultimately their investments, etc. And then finally, you know, investors want to have a purposeful impact. They don't want to just be part of consuming. They want to be part of co-creating, co-investing, co-working, and ultimately co-creating a planet that they want to see. So let's go into these in a little bit more detail. I don't have enough time tonight to talk about this, but there is a link here on LinkedIn. And again, it's on our e-wealth pack that maybe, Lee, you could just type in the details for people, you know, of this link. But it's ultimately the rise of social commerce and collaborative investing. And you can see here that we've gone through, and I've been through all the different periods in history. You've got production and marketing and how it's changed from craft production to mass production to lean production. You've then got commerce, you've got compliance, regulation, and trust. And then you've also got the brands that represent these areas the best, you know, Ford Motor Company, Toyota, Amazon, Facebook, etc. And where we've gone to now, as the world has changed, is that we've gone into collaborative smart investing. Now, collaborative investing is a concept that has been around for centuries, that the wealthiest people, the kings, the queens, and the monarchs used to invest like. But yet it is very, very difficult for everyone else to invest like that because you need a lot of money and a lot of resources. And now, by taking smart, which is the technology, we believe that collaborative investing can be put in everyone's hands, but using smart technology. And I highly, highly recommend that you go and read this article around the change in commerce and where the world is going as we move into social commerce in the next decade. The second thing is the rise of the middle class. So in most of the platforms around the world, they're focusing on England or America or Australia or Singapore. But we're not really interested in that. We're interested in economies where there's emerging markets and a rise of the middle class. We like to look for where there's a large population, where there's large urbanization, and where there's large internet adoption. Those three things all mean a rise in the middle class. Now, if you consider that in China, over the last 20 years, the impact that the Chinese middle class has had on the global economy, and then I was to ask you how many people joined the Chinese middle class, and it's somewhere between 200 million and 400 million Chinese people joined the Chinese middle class in the last 20 years, and you look at the impact that they've had on the global economy. And over the next 10 years, there are another 1.2 billion people around the world that are going to be joining the middle class, and it's primarily going to be happening in the emerging markets. And that is why we're in Africa. That is why we're in China. My Chinese partner has just been out here for a week. That is why we have a team on the ground, and we're setting up in India, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc., because there's significant growth in those markets of the middle class. The third is globalization. And when you look at capital flows, this graph's a little bit outdated, but it doesn't matter. When you look at global capital flows, there's a tremendous amount of capital that left China to go into American property, as an example. But that's still the top 1% of the top 1%. I've just said to you, there's 400 million middle-class people that are allowed to move $50,000 legally per year. There's 900 million of them that are on their smartphone with a system called WeChat. And imagine if they could safely and simply, through their cell phone, invest directly into global property. That's where the world's going. So it's not about trying to empower the top 1% of the top 1%. It's about trying to empower the middle class that want access to the exact same, they've got the same needs and wants from an investment. The fourth is about blockchain. And, we've gone through the Gartner hype cycle. You can see how it's gone up and gone down. In 2017, everyone was trying to buy cryptocurrency. In 2018, it sort of crashed. 2019 hasn't really gone anywhere. But what most people don't realize is there's just been a steady increase in the investment into the blockchain space. And all the biggest banks in the world are investing. All the governments around the world are investing. And there's more and more resources going into blockchain. And so it's not a case that if there's going to be blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it's just a case of when. And you can see over the next decade how that is due to increase dramatically. The fifth one is the UN goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the UN went out and they crowdsourced this. They spoke to people all around the world, and they got them to vote on the number one things that they wanted to fix around the world by 2030. They came up with 17 goals, and number one is no poverty. And that's the one we've chosen to focus on. It's about empowering the 99% to be able to invest like the top 1% and to solve the greatest challenge on the planet. And some people don't resonate with that. They resonate with other sustainability development goals. But the thing that I love most is that you can now be profitable and purposeful. If you can empower 1 billion people, I guarantee you're going to build a business that's worth $1 billion. Number 6 is about gamification and learning while doing. When one looks at the benefits of gamification, you've got instant feedback, you've got a better learning environment, you've got prompting behavioral change. So again, it's all about habits. And when it comes to investing, it's all about changing habits. It's about applying the most learning needs. It's about impacting the bottom line, and it's about a better learning experience. And when one looks at gamification and how it's changing around the world, this is not just going to change the financial industry, the investment industry. It's going to change the entire education system, where people are no longer learning and then going and doing. They're learning while doing through the process. Personalization, I've spoken a bit about this tonight already, but 48% of consumers want their experience to be personalized. 90% of marketers believe personalization is the future. 74% of consumers get frustrated when the content has nothing to do with them. So you'll see that we ask you questions, we ask you to fill in surveys, and the more that we understand what it is you're looking for. That's a lovely jet. Oh my word, all the springboks flying on the jet. Oh my word, my little monkey's on holiday, hey? Yeah. And, again, when it comes to investing, we're all sick of being stuck in a box. It's about creating a personalized journey so that you can create your personal path to wealth. And then number 8 is really interesting. because, often, purposeful investments and impact investing has been sort of seen as a bunch of tree huggers, but it's really changed over the last 10 years. And then by 2020, it's expecting to be $1 trillion. And, one of the biggest private equity firms in the world, in fact, the biggest private equity firm, Blackstone, came out last year and they said to all the CEOs they invest in, if you don't have purposeful companies, we will be disinvesting in you. It is becoming a massive, massive trend. And as the millennials have more and more impact, around the world, there's one of the greatest transfers of wealth happening where the baby boomers are now they're in retirement and they're starting to hand over, they're starting to pass on, etc., hand over to their children. And over the next 10 years, more than 60% of those assets are going to be in the power of women, in the power of females. And what's really interesting is that they are much more purposeful. They are much more worried about the planet, the environment, social factors, etc., etc. And so it's not only about profit, but it's also about purpose. But it doesn't have to be all about purpose and no profit. You can have profit and purpose. As Richard Branson says, doing good is good for business. So there's another article, and one of my partners, Paul Niederer, actually created this document. There's another article on LinkedIn that I can recommend you go and read, where we've spoken about this technological disruption and this cultural disruption. And what you can see is that there's 8 social trends, there's 8 technology trends, and they're all intersecting over the next 10 years. And that's why it's creating a generational opportunity to disrupt not just the real estate industry. There will be other industries, old archaic industries, that are going to get disrupted. But when it comes to real estate, when it comes to investment, when it comes to wealth, it's the number one challenge on this planet. And therefore, it's not only a solution which needs to be solved, but it's a solution that people are desperately looking for solutions. And they basically want a safe and simple way to do it. When you look at user engagement, as I said to you already, it's gone from publishing to social media to e-commerce, and now it's gone to social commerce. And what's really important is that everything they look for is it's about sticky money. It's about annuity income. It's about what they call share of wallet. Now, we've got a 78% reinvestment on our platform. And what's really important, when people invest, they're going to reinvest and they reinvest. I tend to joke with people, but my bank, when I was 13 years old, they gave me a blue bank card like this. And, I'm 42 now, and I'm still with the same bank. And, quite frankly, I hate the bank, but I'm still with them. And it's really interesting because if you're on Amazon, you might or might not buy something, you might or might not go back. But what's really important is if you can get a share of that wallet and how sticky your client is. And when it comes to wallets and banking, it's a very, very sticky product. And that's why we want to drop our barriers to entry down, because the more people we can add value to, the more we can grow the lifetime value of the community. Our ecosystem has been designed fourfold to be able to attract different parts. So you've got the WealthE University, which is all about online education, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. You've got Migrate that most people already understand. You've got the Wealth Movement, which is live events that take place around the world. And then we haven't launched this yet, but with time, we will launch Create, and it'll be the same platform, the same technology, but just under a different brand, because the person that's investing $1 will have a very different experience and needs from someone that's investing $10,000. And so Migrate will be for the professionals, the middle class, and people that want to invest internationally. And Create will be for the beginners that want to just invest locally, but using the same technology. When you look at our ecosystem, we basically designed it where you've got Create, Migrate in a circle, you've got knowledge, you've got experience and support. And we're looking to add value all the way through the ecosystem as people gain, more trust and get more and more involved within the community and what is actually happening. And what we've actually achieved over the last 6 years now, the platform's been live since October 2013, is that now people can literally invest in a couple of minutes. They can get access to the best partners, the best opportunities from $1,000. We have beta tested $100. In fact, on Black Friday, we did another 86 clients. But now people, it's no hassle, no management fees, no maintenance, no complex global tax structures. It's so interesting for our clients that are generally used to property, and they can't believe how easy it is to actually invest on the platform and to get the returns. And so people can now just focus on the best opportunities. The business model is fairly simple. It's a traditional marketplace. You've got the suppliers, so quality trusted suppliers in England, Australia, and America. and with time, others. We're bringing on Europe next year. They list the properties on the platform. Global investors get access to them, and then they invest on the platform. We've got a large pipeline of investors. I've been doing this now for 20 years. And, so we've built a huge amount of relationships. And we've done everything from medical centers to game reserves and everything in between in terms of people investing. And so, these are the type of buildings that people have invested in around the world, be it in America, in England, or Australia. And whether they want to choose between America, England, Australia, or even South Africa, they no longer need to choose. And there's 4 simple steps that people follow to be able to go through the process. They sign up, they select the investment, they transact online, and they manage their global portfolio. And I was with the whole tech team yesterday, and they literally are, weeks away from getting the digital wallet going. Obviously, it's your money, so you want to make sure that they're doing intensive testing. But when that global wallet's there, it's just going to change everyone's lives, because it's going to be so much easier to invest globally and yet be in control of your wallet. We're integrating with the biggest wallet provider in the world, backed by one of the biggest banks in the world out of Europe. And it's really, really exciting how this is going to change the rules of the game for us, because it'll really allow us to scale. It'll allow us to drop down the minimum investments and to reduce the friction costs. In terms of our track record, we've now got members in 133 countries. We've done over $600 million in deals. We've had just short of $100 million now go through the platform. And we've paid out over $12 million in dividends. We've won numerous different awards. And as I said to you, probably the thing we're proudest of is that we've got a 78% reinvestment rate. This is what the world looks like, where we've got our members and investors. We do need to find someone in Greenland, but one of the things that excites me most is that we've actually got investors. That's people that have taken their money out of their pocket and invested from 62 different countries. And yet we've only ever spent marketing money in South Africa and China. So that means 60 other countries, people have found us online and invested. And when you look at our global competitors, they're all in country. So any one of these ones in America, every single one of them, unless you have a social security number, you actually can't invest. Same in England, same in Dubai, same in Asia. And so we said to ourselves, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to have 20 different apps if I invest in 20 different countries. I want one global solution where we can integrate and invest around the world and manage it all in one place. And our business model has been set up to allow us to not actually see our competitors as competitors, but actually partners. Because we can do B2C, which is business to consumer. We can do B2B, which is business to business. And we can do B2P, which is business to platform. Because we can go to a platform like we're talking to a big platform in America called CrowdStreet. They don't have any ability for foreigners to invest in their platform. So we're going to integrate with their platform and allow foreign investors to invest in their deals. We've got sponsors like Orbest, where they're on the platform, and that's a B2B. And then on the B2C side, we've got the whole branded, what do they call it, the white label solution, the investor solution. And it's amazing some of the brands around the world that we are talking to at the moment that are interested in either working with Migrate or doing a co-branded solution where it actually uses their brand and it's literally just powered by Migrate. And it's what we call our Rockefeller strategy. I'd highly recommend going and watching a TV series called Men Who Built America, and it's all about Rockefeller and Carnegie and JP Morgan and Henry Ford, etc. And one of the things that really took me back was the Rockefeller strategy of how through strategic partnerships, through acquisitions and through partnerships, they basically built out the oil network, we call it the Rockefeller strategy, where they actually ended up with more than 90% of the world's distribution in oil. And that's where we talk about the global real estate marketplace, where there's going to be the trusted global real estate marketplace, because there will be a lot of local operators that are trusted, that are plugging into the global trusted real estate marketplace. And here's a good example of our white label solution. This is all built, and you can see where a bank or a fund manager or anything like that, financial advisor can come along, and it's literally just powered by Migrate. It's completely branded in their colors, and the clients go through. And this is all built and working. We've got a couple of beta versions out with it. This is an example of a platform like Property Share, which is in India. We've had a conversation with them and with HBITS, they're a good platform in India, but they don't know how to get global. So we can connect in with them and give them a global solution, with them providing a local Indian solution. And one of the things that's so interesting is that Ken Williams, our head of strategic finance, has done all the maths of how Amazon did this through strategic partnerships, and how we can dramatically grow the value of their business and at the same time grow the value of our business. And if you want to know how this works through strategic partnerships, I can share with you a model around it, but it's a very, very clever way in terms of growing global distribution without just trying to do it all through digital marketing. And then there's partners like Sherios that have 15 million women in India, and they're looking for a wealth solution, and we're looking to try and actually involve them in our launch on the 6th of March next year. Cashbox, this is really interesting because this is a financial product. It's an income product. It's got nothing to do with property, and yet our system can completely handle it. And so what we're going to be doing is not only having real estate projects now, but we're going to have different investment products, which just opens up a whole new genre of products, revenue streams for the business, which is really fascinating. And as I explained, there's companies like opaque, real estate companies that use the platform. In terms of those that are actually raising funds on the platform, we've got an entire system now that we learned from Cedars, to be honest, and it's a launch format that we use when we actually take and onboard suppliers through, and you can see all the due diligence and everything that takes place. And what's interesting is that also around our country partners. So as I said to you, I've just spent a week with Ken Williams. Ken Hu, and Ken is out from China. And we started in China in 2016. We learned a lot of hard lessons. We wasted a lot of time and a lot of money, but we finally got the team right in about 2017. They started to grow, and in 2018 they did about $500,000 in equity. In 2017, they did $500,000 in equity. In 2018, they did $1 million in equity, and this year they're on track to do $7 million in equity. So you can see a dramatic increase in growth, and you can also see in our deals, they used to be taking only a small amount of the funding, and now they're up to 40-50% of our deals, which is just phenomenal. Because I always say to people, it's countries like China and India where there truly is scale and hundreds of millions of people in the middle class, and it's really exciting what the team Wealth Migrate China are actually doing. In terms of the millennials and where the world is going, there's 4 things they want. They want education, they want community, they want investment, and they want purpose. And that is why we formed the Inner Circle, because if you look at it, you've got a massive growth in online education, and there hasn't been a huge amount of adoption yet in online investing. And the way to solve that is by solving trust. And the new economy is all about trust. And the way to solve trust is to bring online education and online investing together. And that is why we've got the Wealth University and Wealth Migrate. We've got things like the Inner Circle and all the different products and courses. And it's so vitally important to understand how this is a driving strategy, for our business, and how you can actually build a very profitable front-end wealth university that actually pays for your customer acquisition and then grows your investor base, and it becomes a lot more sustainable from a cash flow perspective. So we started off with the invest in Wealth Migrate, and then this year we launched the Wealth University, so it's now been going for 12 months, and we've started to get real traction with regards to the Wealth University. And something like the Inner Circle, we've now got over 400 people that are part of the Inner Circle. We're looking to really scale that next year, where people can literally, and we've got the whole starter pack, so they can join the community, they can get access to coaching, they can get access to webinars, they get a $100 starter voucher to be an investor. And it's really about engaging, and it will allow us to really use a digital strategy now in terms of where we're going. That allows us also with regards to affiliate partners. There's a company in China called Chang Tao. They've got 2 million customers. 86% of them are women. The average age is 31. We've gone out to them. They've already given us about 150 investors. And, it's all about the education. Just last night, Ken was building an online education course for them in China. Ken Hu from China, our partner in China. And then ultimately offering them the investment solution. And we did Money Revealed this year. They had 2 million. They would go out to 2 million people. they've got a unique campaign that was supposed to be going out last week, but unfortunately, we've actually asked them to wait until January because it's Christmas time now. The My Wealth, we did a whole bunch of things around this year, and then the Wealth Chef, with Ann Wilson, we've done a lot, and they're just examples of how you can really grow the demand strategy. But the one that I'm most excited about is the digital strategy and where we're copying Grant Cardone. Now, Grant Cardone is American. He only helps Americans in America, but he's raised like $270 million in a week, and he's doing it all through Facebook and Instagram. And the way that he does it, and we've sort of re-engineered his whole process, is that he goes to Facebook and Instagram, he then upsells or downsells an education product, and then ultimately, once they're in the ecosystem, do they then get a call from an investment consultant to invest in deals, basically. You can see all the stuff that he does, all the different courses. It's literally cheap, $47, $97 courses, a whole lot of live and online events. And this is the process of how it actually works, which is absolutely fascinating. And for me, is that we realized in 2017 that it was really important to build an online education front end. We were working with a guy called Neil Milan, that's one of the best digital marketers in the world. He's currently doing $4 million in revenue himself. And we've actually worked very closely with him. He's actually helped us find a performance marketer, which most people don't even know what a performance marketer is. We managed to headhunt this guy out of Get Smarter. That's one of the best online education platforms in the world. Recently acquired for $140 million. They're going to do about $100 million in revenue this year. So you've got someone that was running a team of 80 people. His budget was $12 million, and he was bringing in a revenue of $50 million. So that's a 400 to 500% ROAS, which is return on ad spend. And it's really, really interesting for us, because if I go back to this, and I don't know if I've got time, but hopefully I can show you quickly, is that we've now gone out and built this all out. Why is it not logged in? Lee, could you help me quickly? Why is this not? Did you change your login here?
Nope, it's still the same.
Could you WhatsApp me the login, the password quickly, please?
Yeah, I've just sent it to you privately on this group chat.
Let me see there quickly.
I'll WhatsApp it to you as well.
Oh, there. Thank you. No, it's fine. It's fine. I got it.
It should be that, and it's either
not working.
It's either a capital or a small, so maybe that's the problem.
Oh man. Why don't
the other way around. Try it the other way around.
Could I ask, could you try and log in?
Yeah.
And if possible, I can share my screen with you, and you could just share it. I don't know why I'm not being able to log in. I really would like to share this with people, because I think this fundamentally changes the rules of the game, and shows people how you can build out a digital strategy. And now with Aubrey joining the team and Shane, etc., we really are building out the capability to truly scale the business on the demand side, which has global potential. And what's really interesting is that it brings a lot of predictability to the company, which then allows you to test, measure, predict, scale, and it's very, very important. So just shout me if you manage to get in.
I can't get in, so I'm busy resetting the password at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. Just shout when you're in, and we can come back to it, because I would like to.
Cool.
I would like to say that I think it's very, very valuable. And so, for me, we'll come back to that when Lee can log in. And once all these systems are in place, that's when, and we're not ready yet, but that's when it'll allow us to launch Wealth Create, which is where our dream is ultimately to get it down to $1 per person per investment. Now, we're not there yet, and we've got no intention of doing that in 2020 or probably even 2021. But it is something we will do in the next decade if we're going to truly empower the 99% to be able to invest. Our vision is to make investing as simple as a swipe of the finger, and ultimately to get it down to $1. And the reason it's $1 is because $1 doesn't change people's lives, but you can change their habits. And if we can change their habits, we can change their financial lives. And then our big picture purpose, I started with our why. Our big picture purpose is our wealth movement. And really what was interesting is, like I told you already tonight, we did the math, and there's about 1 billion people that have access to property. And we said, why should we not be able to double that? Why could we not create a more sustainable and better planet for all? And so we launched the wealth movement. And, when you look at the challenges around the world, the top 1% owns more than 50% of the world's wealth. And, in 1972, it was only 24%. So it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the reason being is that the top 1% are invested in better assets than the 99%. And that needs to be solved. Where you live geographically has a massive impact on your wealth. If you're a male or a female, has a massive impact on your wealth. And equally, if you're a millennial, you really have, been born on the back foot. And so all these things, create problems for investors. And on top of that, when it comes to real estate, they're stuck in country, there's massive barriers, and doing deals is extremely difficult. And so for us, we wanted to solve that and allow the 99% to be able to invest like the top 1%, using technology. And it's really important for people to understand our why, because that's what gets us out of bed. That's what drives us. That's where our passion and our purpose is. Hilda wrote us this manifesto back in 2015, and it said, imagine a world where most or all people are literate, a world where education is par for the course, a world where women are treated as equals, a world where all people, this got cut off, but have access to investment opportunities. Imagine a world where 6 billion people on the planet who currently live in poverty can live with freedom. Imagine that world. At the Wealth Movement, we're aiming to create that world, and that is our why. And we fundamentally believe that you can build a very profitable and purposeful company at the same time. And if you empower 1 billion people, then it goes without saying that you're going to have $1 billion company. And that's why we ask ourselves, Lee, have you managed to get in?
Nope, I still haven't received the reset password, so I am trying.
Okay, I'll just shout this out when you if you do. That's why we really we talk about the Amazon of real estate. When you consider Amazon and how much it's changed people's lives over the last 25 years, why could you not have the same trust, the same transparency, the same safety, the same simplicity in global real estate? And then we ask people the question, how can you afford not to be part of this? So when we talk about the Big Bang, what's really, really interesting is that, for me in 1965, the average stock was held for 6 years. And now it's held for just 22 seconds. And what happened was companies like E-Trade came along in 1980, and they basically allowed people to participate in stock markets, but using the internet, using online investing. Now, it's a 40-year-old company, basically, and it's worth about $12 billion. It's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. But it truly changed the way things happened. And I don't believe when it comes to property, it's going to take 40 years. Because when you take the median house ownership right now, in America, it's currently 8.7 years. And, when you use platforms like Migrate and others, it's certainly not going to take 40 years where people are going to be able to invest far smaller amounts of money with a lot more liquidity in much better investments at a global level. And it's going to be all happening through the digital process. And that's why I shared with you the 6 Ds. And that's where, we see the Amazon of global real estate going. In terms of our team and actually being able to deliver, we've really tried to take a balanced view between property professionals and tech professionals. We've also got a globally diversified team across 5 different continents. We've got investment bankers, we've got compliance, we've got, as I said to you, technology, real estate, etc. And in terms of the financial summaries, with regards to this, as I said to you, we had to use all the same material as what we had on Cedars. And if you are interested, you can go along to Cedars and you can literally see everything. It's live on the platform. And again, they're a regulated platform, so everything that was put here had to be vetted and verified and everything else. And you can actually go and read about the idea. You can read about the market, the team, et cetera, et cetera. It's all public information in terms of the whole thing. And I will come back to some of the questions that were being asked earlier around the financials. But what I wanted to just share for everyone, just to finish off, was that there's three key metrics that drive our business. It's the number of transactions, it's the average fee per transaction, and it's the average transaction size. Our aim is to be making $100 million in revenue, which gives us a valuation of $1 billion. So to do that, we've got to increase the number of transactions, we've got to decrease the transaction size. And in one calendar year, we're aiming for 1 million transactions at an average fee of 5% with an average transaction size of $2,000. And that will then generate a revenue of 100 million with a valuation of $1 billion. And that's, you know, our valuation is very much tied to our revenue growth, which is why strategic partners and distribution and growth become so important. And obviously, as you got revenue growth, you've also got share price growth in terms of where we're at. In terms of our exit strategies, we've thought about this long and hard. We have copied Amazon, SpaceX, Tesla, Airbnb, Uber, where we copied their liquidity events, because what happened with Facebook is that a lot of shares were sold off market, and then when they listed, it was a really big problem. So they've got a liquidity event built into the shareholders agreement. It's set up to go annually. We are looking to get started with that hopefully next year. That's not that's so for early investors and for, you know, team members or whatever. But the three ultimate outcomes from an exit is firstly a strategic sale, where you sell to like a social media platform like a Facebook, because you've got such a sticky investor base. You sell to a bank or real estate investment firm, or to a REIT, or a real estate company, a real estate investment trust. So that's a strategic sale. The third is a dual listing between London Stock Exchange and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Ken Williams, as an investment banker, has been doing that, in London for 20 years, and that is something that he's been working, very hard to. We're a long way away from that, 5 years or more, but setting everything up so that we can actually do that. And then for those of you who've listened to all the trends we've spoken about tonight, there is the opportunity to tokenize the business, which is, like a traditional listing at the moment, but obviously creates mass liquidity and value for the investors. So why are we doing what we're doing? Well, really in 2014, we copied what Salesforce did. Now, Salesforce is the largest CRM company in the world, customer relation management company in the world. And I read their book by Mark Benioff, Behind the Cloud, which I highly recommend, back in 2014. And he said, in 1999, he went to all the venture capitalists and he said, hey, come invest in my company. And they said, it's ridiculous. It'll never work. No one will ever put information in the cloud. Well, they were so wrong. But what was interesting is that he went to his customers and he said, hey, customers, you clearly believe in it. Why don't you invest in the company? And they did. And today it's the 14th biggest technology company in the world. It's worth $50 billion. And we learned a lot from that, because we were like, well, hang on. If you've got a community of people that have a vested interest in seeing you succeed, then it's a win-win scenario. Secondly, when you're building a tech platform company, it takes capital to fund the growth within the company. And thirdly, for me, we had a number of our investors that were liking the property investment opportunities, but wanted to participate in the company. And so that's why we formed and launched our Wealth Partner initiative. Now, we call our wealth partners, our shareholders, wealth partners. We've got a wealth collaborative economy with 6 different areas where people can contribute. And what's really interesting, we launched this in 2014. We had 140 wealth partners from around the world before the Cedars investment. But the minimum investment was $10,000 because it was all off market, traditional way of doing it. It was by invite only, and people needed to be able to be qualified. And then obviously when we did Cedars, they opened it up to many more people from 42 different countries. And that was really, really exciting for us, because it dramatically grew the global community. And I always say to people, there's 3 reasons why people want to be a wealth partner. Firstly, they want to be part of a profitable company. Secondly, they want to be part of a global community where they can learn and grow and become global citizens together. And thirdly, they want to have a purposeful impact on the planet. And, if all 3 of those don't resonate with you, then, becoming a wealth partner is not for you. It's not for everybody. But if those 3 things resonate, then a wealth partner could be something to look at as an option. And what I wanted to share with you, I've got a little video coming up here, which we made about a year ago, where we actually just asked our wealth partners. We said, what has the experience been like? Give us one word of what it's been like to be a wealth partner. And this was the little video that we made. And I do think it's really, really valuable to see what different people's experience.
Inspired. Freedom.
Abundance.
Credibility. Enlightened.
Impactful.
Powerfully enabling.
Unimaginable.
Peace of mind.
Phenomenal.
Total honesty.
Reliable.
Genius.
Engaged.
Excited.
Hopeful.
Exponential.
Empowered.
Connected.
Dream. Innovative.
Global diversity.
Opportunity.
Freedom. Change.
Excited.
Ukamuso. Blessed. Empowered.
Incredible. Privileged.
Revolutionary. Super. Disruptive.
Support.
Change.
Empowering.
Excited. Interesting.
Evolving. Global.
Opportunity.
Buzzing.
Powerful. Fortunate.
It's possible.
Work.
Community.
Inkululeko. Proud.
Transformative.
Fiddle.
Inclusive.
Satisfaction.
Trust.
Disha.
Discipline.
Secure.
Proud.
Fortunate.
Excited.
Driven.
Privileged. Community.
Spearheading.
Unlimited. Excited.
I feel inspired.
Partnership.
Future.
Inspired.
Peace of mind.
Excited.
Metamorphosis.
Inspirational.
Freedom.
Abundance.
Pathfinders.
Empowered.
Inspired.
Purposeful.
Opportunity.
Engaged.
Passive income.
Transformation.
Generous.
Grateful. Rewarding.
Legendary.
Cash flow.
Diversified.
Interesting.
Exciting.
Freedom.
Gives me options.
Empowerment.
Highly innovative.
Exponential. Bold.
Opportunities.
Grateful.
Freedom.
Absolutely inspirational.
Leading edge.
Empowering.
Adventure.
Game changer.
Groundbreaking.
International.
Liberating.
HOPE. Phenomenal. Professional. Life-changing.
Inspired.
Opportunity.
Freedom.
Independence.
Diversified.
Peace of mind.
Prosperity.
The future.
Being a wealth partner is empowering.
So, Lee, I see you sent me a message there. Have you managed to get in now?
No, unfortunately not, Scott. I'm still battling to get in, but what I will do is I will send to everyone who attended tonight's webinar, the webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago, because it has it in there and they can just watch it from there. I will tell them where to start watching. Sorry about that.
Okay. So now
Fintech
hopefully you can see. Yeah. Now hopefully you can see in terms of where the world's going, where the opportunity is, and why, you know, allowing people to be part of the Wealth Partner allows people to go up the value chain and invest in a growth company. And really what happened with Seeders, and the reason we went out to Seeders was we wanted to really extrapolate and grow our community around the world, which we did. You know, as we said, 863 investors from 43 countries. And like I said earlier on, you know, we had $400,000 committed from investors in an Australian development, and through no fault of their own, the development was due to, you know, be exited in March, April. And, you know, we had no problem with that, neither did Seeders. But unfortunately, the development's been delayed, and it, you know, it hasn't been exited in 2019. And so what we agreed with Seeders was that people could participate at the exact same rate, you know, on the same terms and everything else as investors did when we did the Seeders launch, as long as we did it before the end of the year. Now, we've had over $200,000 actually, you know, subscribed from the webinar 2 weeks ago. We've, you know, the money's already in the bank. So, you know, Lee's keeping a very tight control on that. It is a, you know, it is a first come, first serve, and also, you know, people do need to qualify in terms of being able to participate. We have done it in amounts. So the minimum amount is $10,000. We tend to find that people do it in different ranges. So you've got a $10,000 investment, you've got a $25,000 investment, and you've got a $100,000 investment, and then we've got a you know, what we call a large investor platinum investor, which is a $250,000 investor. And we had a number of them come in during the Seeders campaign. But obviously, we've got a cap of $400,000. And so if people are interested, just type in there, contact me or whatever. And between Lee, myself, and the team, we'll be able to give you more information. What's also amazing is that we're on this purposeful journey. And this young man, Bongi, is a young gentleman we met back in 2015 as a community. We agreed at our AGM. We support him every year. We crowdfunded him to go to a private school. He's going into his final year of schooling next year. He wants to be an electrical and mechanical engineer. I always joke with people, he's probably going to be the next Elon Musk. His mom, this was him a lot younger. His mom is a police lady. His dad is a security guard. And as I say, we crowdfunded him. And he's just one of the campaigns that we are trying to, as a community, have a purposeful impact on the world in terms of what we're doing. And I always say to people, this is a picture of my wife and my son. My son was 5 years old, and he was learning that to own green hotels and red houses playing global monopoly is what we call smart investing. His father, with an incredible team, has taken a dream of playing monopoly and turned it into a reality, and now has investments in 4 different continents, diversified across residential and commercial, different asset classes, different currencies, different countries. It's what we call smart investing. The wealthiest people in the world, it's all about generational wealth. It's what we call smart investing. And our aim is to put smart investing in every single person's pocket. And we invite you to come on the journey with us. If being a wealth partner and wanting to be part of this journey, this is a unique opportunity to get in. If you missed out on Seeders, to get in at the same valuation, the same rates as Seeders. We've got a lot of great things in place. The digital wallets are just around the corner. We've now got global compliance. We've got digital demand. We've got country rollout strategies. And we really have an exciting plan put together for next year. And it allows people, really to be able to participate and get involved. So I know Lee is trying to see if we can get access, because for some reason our password has been changed. But let me see if there's any questions here that I can help with. So Max said investment opportunity at the same valuation in terms of Seeders. So hopefully, Max, I've shared that with you, and it is exactly the same terms and valuation as what we did with Seeders. That was the condition. Heidi said, thank you, Scott and Lee. Have attended last session, so if the internet is variable, may not last the distance. One question: if 2 of us would put money in syndicate, can we create another entity on Wealth Migrate, still private entity, not a company, to be able to buy 10,000? If this question is better one-to-one. Yeah, so I think Lee, you've already asked Heidi. You've already answered Heidi, yeah?
Yeah, I've already gone back to Heidi directly on that.
Okay. And I think the point being is, if you do have specific questions like that, we always want to try and help and accommodate people and, find a way to make it work, as long as we don't add too much admin to Lee's life. But just reach out to us and ask us. Then I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this name, but Bodavin, so I apologize for my pronunciation, said, I am already an investor via Seeders and have done some purchases on your site. We would like to know how the current financial situation is of Wealth Migrate, revenue, profit and loss, lost monthly cash position, etc. So it's a great question. We've actually just, as I said to you, we're just finishing our annual financials. We do have calendar year reporting, so obviously we've got to wait until the end of the year. Our revenue numbers for 2019 are looking somewhere between 1.6 and $2 million. We've got one big deal that we're just trying to close out, and now at the end of the year, in terms of where we're at. The good news is that our operating losses in 2017 were $2.8 million. In 2018 were $1.2 million, and in 2019 were only $300,000. And we're very much on track to break even. Our intention is to break even by Q2 of next year and to move into profitability, which will put us in a far more sustainable position from a growth perspective, and also in terms of where the global economy is. So I think in terms of, we did a full financial report for 2018, and now that we are finalizing all the numbers, we'll be doing the same full financial report for 2019. Obviously it's whatever, the middle of December. So we can expect that probably, in January. But the good thing is that they use Xero as our accounting system, and it pulls everything through into LivePlan. So we've got some very transparent reporting, which I'm looking forward to next year, being able to give far better quarterly updates to the investors based on budgets to actuals, profitability, and everything that you're asking in terms of where we're at. Okay. Would you be able to send a replay of this as I'm messing? Okay, so yes, we will be able to. I love your ideas, however, I might have missed the explanation. If the richest 1% currently own half the world's wealth, how sustainable is it for the 99% to invest like the top 1%? How does this vision translate into sustainable investing and planetary care rather than capitalist greed? Thanks for answering. So, Sarah, I think it's a very good question. And, my belief when it comes to the wealth movement is that most people come from a place of scarcity, and so they believe that there's only a certain amount of resources on the planet. And so the 1% tries to build a big wall to make sure that the 99% can't get in. But actually, the way to solve the problem, if you look at China or anywhere else in the world, is to rise the middle class. Okay, and by rising the middle class, you ultimately you don't need to build a wall. You increase the sustainability of the planet, and so you allow them to invest. And at the moment, the majority of investments are being made through institutions and through very wealthy individuals. And there's no reason why those same investments can't be made by individuals investing directly in the deals, just cutting out all the middlemen. And rather than all the fees being paid away to the middlemen, they could actually benefit and see far higher returns. Classic example of that is that our medical deals consistently for 5 years paid an 8% cash on cash return in dollars. And yet the American REITs, real estate investment trusts, pay on average 4.75%. And I always ask people, what's the difference? Are we cleverer? Are we better negotiators? What is the reason? And there's only one reason. It's just that we've cut out all the middlemen, and the investors are now investing directly in the property. So it doesn't mean that the number of properties necessarily increase. It just means that you're cutting out all the middlemen and allowing people to participate directly in the deal and get wholesale or institutional returns, not retail returns, which is the huge difference. So Gavin's asked, how close are we to getting a Wealth Migrate mobile app? Very good question, Gavin. And it's quite an interesting one because our core focus this year has been trying to get the wallets going, and the whole digital journeys and everything in terms of where we are. Obviously, as the minimum investments come down, which is now going to happen with the digital wallets, an app becomes more and more prevalent in terms of where we're at. So definitely on, they call it the, what do they call the bloody thing now? I'm going to call it the design schedule. It's not called that. But there's a priority schedule that we work through on the tech. And, at the end of the day, we want to do everything. But we just prioritize the tech as to what is the easiest and going to have the biggest impact for our investors. And then once we've done that, we move on to the next thing. And obviously at the moment, the core focus of the team is the digital wallets. Gavin, thanks for that. You said you came second at the event. I don't like coming second. You know me pretty well. Anton, I'd like to know more. So that's Austin. So that's perfect, Austin. We'll reach out to you. Ravi, thanks very much. What is the minimum investment amount at the time of the initial seeders? So when we did seeders, the investment amount through the seeders platform was £10. Because this is offline, we can't do it at £10. So the minimum investment is like we used to do our wealth partners at $10,000 in terms of that process. With regards to the regulation, like the FSCA, what is the strategy in that regard? So George, good question. So we actually, we are regulated under ASIC, which is Australia, which is one of the most regulated or respected regulatory bodies around the world. That allows you to passport around the world to all the different regulations. So we had a meeting just yesterday because we're wanting to get our FCA regulation, which is in the UK. In South Africa, we've actually, we're a juristic rep under an FCA license, FSCA license. And we've actually just, in the last 2 weeks, we've been meeting with the regulator for many years, and they didn't have any policy around crowdfunding in South Africa, so it was always quite a tricky one. But they now do have a policy, and we actually submitted all our documents, and I can't remember, Lee, I don't know if you can remember, for something like 338 pages we had to submit, which Megan dropped off last week. So we've actually, although we currently are under a juristic rep license, we've actually applied for our own license in South Africa as well. But the intention would be, as we're growing out around the world, is to work with local partners that are regulated in those licenses and can plug into a global regulated solution, including with listing out of Ireland. And can you contact me? So yes, Anthony, we'll contact you. Thank you very much. Austin, thank you, Scott. Are you able to answer either or both of these questions? Okay. If a company we invest in via Wealth Migrate platform should go bankrupt or default on or on their investment returns, what safety nets are in place for investors? Do Wealth Migrate back and secure any of our investments in any case, in any scenario? Is your company in any way liable for these extreme scenarios, bankrupting, defaulting on paying profits, seeing as your company has vetted the companies on the platform? So Austin, it's a very good question, and there's multiple ways I would answer that. So firstly, from a safety perspective, is that we don't touch your money. So it's always held in third-party regulated providers. Same with the wallets. So it's not in our account. So if we were to go bankrupt, we firstly don't touch your money in any way. Okay. Secondly, we're not a fund. So if you invest in a fund or in a REIT, a real estate investment trust, and we go bankrupt, then the liquidators have to come in and they have to sell off all the assets and they have to try and pay back the investors. In this case, if we were to go bankrupt, the platform is merely a facilitator, and all the investments are held in separate companies, and they ring fence per investment. So you're very protected against the anything that went wrong with the company. The third part of the question is, what do we do in terms of guarantees for the investments? Now, we can't guarantee that every investment's going to work. And in simple terms, when it comes to property, I've been doing this for 20 years. It doesn't always work. But what I have learned is that it's not so much about the property, but about the partner and finding the right partners. And we've got an example in Australia, like I've already mentioned, which was a development which didn't go according to plan. And we worked very closely with the developer to find a solution and to ultimately work on not only getting people their capital back, but looking to get a return on investments. And so when it doesn't work, we work very closely with the partner to be able to provide a solution. The last thing I would say around it is that as a platform, and now I'm talking to you as a potential shareholder and investor in the company, as a marketplace, the whole reason for the social proofing and everything else is that, yes, the company tries to vet the partners, tries to vet the property opportunities, but ultimately the investors are the ones that are making the decision to invest. And, one of our board members is a guy called Paul Niedera, and he ran ASOP, which is the oldest equity crowdfunding platform in the world, out of Australia. And they did about 300 raises for private companies in Australia. And he reckons that 10 years later, there's probably, 80% of those companies have gone bankrupt, as startups do. And they've never had a problem where people have come back to the platform and had any problems with the platform, because the platform is there to facilitate. But people acknowledge that they're investing in the company or they're investing in the property. And it's very important that from a risk perspective and a scaling perspective, that those are differentiated. The last thing I would say on that is I learned a huge lesson from Airbnb, where they came out with their insurance policy by Lloyd's of London. And ideally, we would like to get to a place, and if anyone's got any ideas or knows how to do this, please let me know, where we create a product like Wealth Protect. And ultimately, like someone might take a lower return. Let's say a medical deal pays 8%. They might take 6%, but that 2% is actually being paid away to a third party like a Lloyd's of London, and it's called Wealth Protect, and it has a protection mechanism. So these are all things we're working on around trusting, but nothing in life is bulletproof, and we certainly aren't at the size or the scale to be able to guarantee stuff, because obviously that could sink everything. And then the second question was, looking at Wealth Migrate investments, it requests for the traditional bank transfer way to invest. When will blockchain transactions be made available for investments via the So that's awesome. The first step is the digital banking. So we're going to have digital wallets, which will make a massive difference because people can fund their wallets. It's basically like having an online bank account. In terms of blockchain and even cryptocurrency, it is backed by Barclays Bank, and they're still quite reticent. There's still quite a lot of what's the right word? They're not. They're very against cryptocurrency and stuff now. So they don't allow any cryptocurrency in terms of the digital wallets. So it is going to take time in terms of that integration. But that's not saying that the transactions and everything can't be registered on the blockchain. Deanne says, where is the opportunity to invest as doesn't seem to be on the World Migrate? No, 100%, Deanne, good question. It's a off-platform, it's a conversation, sort of by invite only and to our community. And what happens if you're interested, you speak to myself or Lee, you can see my contact details are there, or you speak to Lee, who's head of our community, or Alex or Fritz, and they can, actually send you out. We send you a subscription agreement. We send you the bank details. Once someone actually signs the subscription agreement and when the money reflects in the bank account, they then get the share transfer. We use a system called Core Connects, which is out of Canada. It's a listed company out of Canada. So it's completely transparent in terms of your share ownership. And basically you then own the shares. Okay, Max, thanks very much. I hear you loud and clear. I see that Lee has replied to you, and so she will, contact you directly. Hi Tish, thank you very much for your feedback, and it's certainly something we'll take on board. Again, when we did the Seeders launch, we were very excited that we could get it down to literally £10. Let us see what is possible, but at the moment, just from pure operational, because it's really is time heavy or people heavy, because it's a manual process at the moment. It's a little bit higher. Saying that, in terms of investing in the property, Hitesh, it's getting really exciting now with the digital wallets and our starter packs and everything, where people are going to be able to invest even from $100. Okay, awesome. Thanks very much for the feedback. Really, really appreciate it. And Hitesh, thank you. Yeah, as I said, maybe yourself and Lee can talk. And I'm a big believer in life that where there's a will, there's a way. And then Farut, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Perfect. I look forward to contacting with you. So I can see that quite a few people have left, and I forgot to do the poll. I'm going to do a poll here just quickly and ask people if you are interested or whatever. Are there any other questions that anyone has, or anything else that I can help with? This is probably going to be, I think, Lee, is my last live webinar for the year. I'm exhausted and really looking forward to having a bit of a holiday over the festive season. But if there's any questions or anything else that I can answer, I'd love to, be able to help people and answer anything that I could now. And Lee, if there's anything from your side that I've missed out, please let me know. And I am putting the polls up on the screen. I always love to get people's feedback. If nothing else, it helps me know that you know where the button is. But it also just, makes it interesting for us, as to whether we've added value in terms of this webinar, and whether this is something that would be of interest to you. And, if it is, we understand it's a busy time of the year as we go into the festive season. People are wanting to go on holiday, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, we don't like rushing people, but we've got a bit of a time constraint with the Seeders guide. Okay, so I've got the poll up. Let me see if there's any other questions. Lee, if you're still there, every time it's quiet, I'm terrified. I've been cut off on my phone. But is there anything else that I've forgotten, basically?
No, Scott, I think you've covered it all. Vicky, thank you for your comments. I will reach out to you directly and we'll see how we can assist you. And to everybody who has attended the webinar, Scott is going on leave and will be offline for a couple of weeks. He really does need it and deserves it after the hectic year that we have put him through. But thank you for joining us on our last webinar of 2019. It definitely has been an exciting year, and with all the new developments that our tech team has done and what is happening in this space globally, next year is going to be even more exciting. So we look forward to seeing you back in 2020 in January. For those of you who are traveling and who are spending time with family and friends, we hope that you have a fantastic festive season and get to make those memories with your loved ones.
Yeah, no, I want to echo that, Lee. And, again, I did say this last week, but, thank you to you for driving the community and setting all these up. And, I don't think people appreciate how much energy and effort you put in, which is hugely, I'm hugely grateful for. And I know that the community gets a huge amount of value out of it. And for those of you that are interested in investing and getting started, watch out for our starter pack. We did launch it in beta version on Black Friday. We are going to launch it again for Christmas, where people can participate at a really reduced rate and actually get $100, be able to start investing in the platform from $100. So it is really exciting. And if nothing else, maybe give it to someone as a present, because it's a lovely gift that we'll keep on giving, for people. It's much better than buying a crappy toy for a kid or or something, toiletries or something for your mother. It's going to add a lot of value to them. So, it is something that we're launching, and we've got some really exciting stuff planned for next year. And so watch that space. And, for the seeders, investors, and all of Wealth partners, we also are really going to try and increase our ability to share financial numbers, real-time reporting, et cetera, next year. We're really excited about some of the systems that are coming in. I had a lovely session today with Gavin, who's our COO, as we're looking to plan. And we've actually got our final leadership team planning tomorrow, before we sign off, for the year, so that people go and have a nice holiday and then really hit the ground running in January in terms of what's looking. So thank you to all of you. Wonderful to have so many of you online tonight. Thank you for all the feedback. We really, really appreciate it. And, to those of you who have asked for us to reach out to you, between Lee and the team and myself, whatever, we will reach out to you and happy to help answer any questions. And, thanks very much. Most importantly, go out of here with a smile on your face. We're about to go into a new decade. Can you believe it? In 1999, most of us didn't have cell phones. In 2009, most of us didn't have smartphones. We'd never heard of Uber. We'd never heard of Airbnb. It's 2019 now. We're about to go into a new decade. And that new decade is going to present not only massive challenges, but also massive opportunities. And hopefully tonight, if nothing else, it's opened your eyes to some of those opportunities that are available. And we really encourage you and invite you to come on our journey together, and let's really make the most of this generational opportunity as we go into the next decade. Thank you all. Have a wonderful festive season, and see you next decade, which is quite bizarre to say.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good evening.
Cheers.